Hi everyone, thanks for coming. As the title of my presentation says, from developer and to manager and back, this is my personal story. This is my story where oh, something broke, sorry. Oh, technical problems. Right. Okay. Okay, sorry for that. Okay, so as I said, this is my personal story about how from developer, from programmer, I became a manager once, and how I decided to go back to be a developer again. And before I jump to the story, I will present some thoughts, my personal opinions about the role of manager, some theory I found about it, and I hope you'll enjoy it, and I hope everyone will get something that they like from the presentation. So without further ado, let's start. First, something about me. I have a name, I have a job, I have Twitter, and I have an email. Right. First disclaimer. All opinions and views expressed during this presentation are solely my own and do not express opinions and views of my employer. Disclaimer number 2. All of this I'm going to say to you here is my personal story, are my personal opinions, and are my personal view. I'm not a guru of any sort. I don't know everything about managing, obviously. And I just want to share my experience with you and share what happened to me and what are my takeaways out of it. And your experience may differ, and most probably it will. How it works in life, and that's okay. And at any point of this presentation, I'm not saying that being a manager is evil, like the manager role is evil. That's not my point at all. So just to be clear. Right. So once we have this clear, I want to talk a little bit about stereotypes. Stereotypes are in our life, a lot of them really. And example of a stereotype would be that I believe we have it in our society. Still, that you have to you have to go to the university. You have to get a degree to get a good job, which actually life verifies that not necessarily have to be true. And a lot of people, maybe for them, it would be better to do some kind of other schooling and get another become someone else that does need really a degree, but we need these kind of people in our lives. And also, another stereotype I feel mostly everybody in this room had this is if you are in IT, you probably once in a while get a phone call from one of your members of your family saying, "Hey, I need to buy a new computer." You probably know what kind of computer I need to buy, right? We are the go-to people for our families, and they treat IT people, programmers, as people who know everything about computers, everything about graphic cards, everything about processors, and even if operational system crashes, we also know how to fix it, right? Because we know everything about computers, and this is a stereotype that we suffer actually because of. And in IT also we have some stereotypes, and one of them I would like to tackle here. I believe it exists, and it is that every developer will sooner or later become a manager. And then I believe that still many people think like this, and many people have this in their heads that at some point of their career they have to go to the manager side and the manager path, because these youngsters that just ended universities will be so good and knew all the fancy, sexy languages, and we just have to jump there, right? And why I'm saying this, because once I was a recruiter. I was recruiting people for a company I work for, and for this also stereotypical question, where do you see yourself in 5 years? Really, a lot of people say, I think I will be a team leader. I think I'll be a manager, right? It's something that's in our heads that we have this plan that eventually we'll become managers. And this is also because not many companies have anything more to offer for seniors. Like after reaching seniority, it's very common to hear that if you want a promotion, well, think about being a manager, and that this is what happens, and it really doesn't apply only to IT. In other areas of other industries, it's also the same story. So, if you do a Google search for an image about a manager, who's a manager, how does he look like or she, you probably get a picture like this. A guy is sitting at his desk, not doing much, drinking coffee, because everyone's actually doing his job. He doesn't have to do anything, right? And this is, I believe, how many people consider a manager role looks like. And it is also considered to be prestigious, kinda, right? Because people approve and admire something like that. Imagine a situation when you meet somebody, like your friend or a member of your family, and they ask you, what's up? And you say, yeah, recently I became a manager. And he was, what would be his reaction be? It would be like, wow, nice, you did it, right? It's like an ultimate goal for everybody. It's considered to be very prestigious. And absolutely everyone will admire this, even your grandma, even your mother, right? It's something that people say, yeah, you did it. And also, a usual career path for, I think, an IT would be you're hired as a junior, became a regular, and then became a senior. Given that we're in Poland, it takes about 2 years to do that. And right, and at some point, someone will say, hey, this guy's good. Let's make him a manager. Great. Everything's fine, right? This is how it happens. This is how we work. And usually, I'm not saying always, but usually what you do here, what you gain here is a lousy manager, and what you lose here is a great developer and a great expert. And it doesn't have to be like that, I believe. And so jumping to a book. There's a book called Peter Principle, wrote by Lawrence Peter and Raymond Hall in 1969. And there's this sentence, the Peter Principle is actually one sentence, and the book is about it. And the sentence is, in a hierarchy, every employee tends to rise to his level of incompetence. What it means is, if you have a company that is promoting people before they actually prove they have skills for a job, you're giving them bigger shoes by giving them the promotion, and you wait for them to fill the shoes, right? And they keep doing that until they reach a position where they cannot actually fill the shoes. So we have, well, in global, and very, like, simplifying all of this, we end up with a company of incompetent people. Everyone is incompetent, unable to be promoted. So, yeah, it seems real, but the problem with this book is that it has actually no scientific research in it. It's just based on experience, gut feelings, and it actually originally was meant to be satire, but many people picked it up as real data, because intuitively it felt right and it felt correct. So many companies started to change how they operate because of this, and it really appears in many other publications. So, yeah, but still no scientific research. Up until fairly recently, a paper was published by a group of researchers called Promotions and the Peter Principle, right? It's published very recently, as I said, February 2018, right? And they did a study during 6 years, from 2005 to 2011, and they did a study for over 53,000 employees in 214 companies. These were actually US sales companies. So they were measuring something with inside the sales industry. And during this research, over 1,500 people were promoted to managers. And it was measured that it was most likely for the best people to be promoted. So the best salespeople were actually having the biggest chance to be promoted to managers, which is exactly what I was talking about. So the experts in the field were actually becoming managers, which is a different skill set. And what also this study proved was that these guys that were best employees were actually the poorest managers. And I dig a little bit deeper into this study to see how they actually measured that something was better or worse. So it turns out that in the sales industry, they measure salesperson performance by the number of sales it succeeds, of her or his sales succeeds, right? So they measured this as an effectiveness of a person, and after a person was promoted to a manager, they measured what kind of change of his or her employees took place, and this was the digits that they use to have the overall effect. So we have some proof that the Peter Principle is actually real, 60, 70 years later. But if we look at this in some other way, and simplifying things again, we could see two ways to promote, two basic ways to promote people. First one is the one that, as I described, so giving them bigger shoes and waiting for them to fill them up. But how about if we do this differently, and if we give someone, okay, we have to hire someone at some position, right? Let's say a person becomes a developer, right? And we enable them to go outside their role and to perform like outside and see other things that are not necessarily in their job description, to see whether the person presents some other skills that we could use on other position, right? That way, we could promote them when they already prove that they can be a manager, they can be a team leader, they can be whatever. So this way you have, it is safer for the person because it avoids a lot of stress, but it's also safer for a company. We are more sure that this person is able to do their job. Okay, so as I promised, let the story begin now. Right, the story begins with an offer. The story begins in an offer. A couple of years ago, I was a developer in one company, and I was there for a couple of years already. It was then a company of about, 30, 40 people. And a new project came. And everyone was curious about who will get this project as a project manager. And project manager in the company back then meant actually a person that is responsible for the delivery of the project, but is also responsible for like splitting the work into tasks, assigning them to team, and also guiding the development process. It's really a hybrid of a project manager, product owner, all of that stuff. It was a small company that these things happened, so it's really a hybrid. And the person that was offered this role was, surprise, me. And I thought, well, that's pretty early. I was a couple of years after my university degree, actually. But I said, well, why not? Because I had this idea in my head that once I will become a manager. This is a path for me. I had this belief inside. So I said, if it happens now, why not? Just let's try it, right? What can possibly go wrong? And it basically seemed like a dream come true a little bit. And I had this vision before I started that, everything will be cool. I will succeed because I always do. And I was full of good energy, full of ideas. And before I worked for my colleagues, which actually followed the same path. So they were developers promoted to managers, and I was happy to work for them. But I had some ideas to improve, right? A lot of ideas to improve, really. I thought, yeah, when I'll be a project manager, I will do this and this and this. Everything will be cool. Everything will be better. And yeah, I was pretty sure I'll succeed. And the reality came. And the reality was not that really good as I thought, because it turned out that it's really an overwhelming job. There is really a lot of things to do, a lot of documents to fill, a lot of meetings to attend, a lot of discussions to make with the client. I was also a point of contact to the customer. So, a lot of things to do, not too many time, really, not too much time. And I, as a developer, I used to work with one simple task, maybe two, maybe three. It was a bug tracker of some sort. I was just implementing things, and that's it, right? When I became a manager, it turned out that there are a dozen, 100, 1,000 open issues, and actually there was no vision that they will be closed at any point in time soon. So it was really a big switch for me, and there was also this feeling of success that I had in while being a developer. When you write some code, you run tests, they are green. You just push it. You push your change. The pipeline is green. People are reviewing. They're saying, okay, it's success. It's success. It's success. Well, in the manager world, none of that happens. Actually, well, it does happen, and it's a little bit more subtle than that. You have to seek for these successes, but I lacked these quick successes that I had while being a developer. It was a problem for me. And also, I had this idea in my head that a lot of stuff that I was responsible for, I was pretty sure I have to do them myself because I will do them the best way possible. I cannot really trust other people, right? I'm the best here. So I ended up working a lot of hours that I shouldn't do. And I didn't even thought that I could delegate. That was my problem. And when I think about it, I had a lot of things I had an influence on. If I had an idea to do things differently, if I needed some people to help me, I could have go to my boss and say, listen, I would like to change this. I would like to have somebody to help me or something. I would get that. But I didn't have these ideas in my head back then, unfortunately. So it ended up everything in my head, right? And it even went to extremes because at some point, I caught myself 5 minutes before a call with a customer deploying the application to production because I will do the things the best, right? The best way. Yeah, that's how it looked like. And there are a lot of pyramids around. There is a pyramid, like food nutrition pyramid. There is testing pyramid. I would like to introduce you to manager's pyramid. It would consist of emails, meetings, and spreadsheets. It's not really a pyramid. It just these words are of the length, and they just form the pyramid here. But actually, what I want to say here is I wasn't ready for this kind of job because most of my time, most of my work ended up being sending emails to people, reading emails from people, meeting people, and filling up spreadsheets, looking at some diagrams and how the line goes up. Oh, it should go up, but it goes down. Why is this cell in Excel red? Why isn't it green? And, this kind of stuff. I wasn't ready for it. And all of it seemed like I looked at it from developer's perspective still, and it seems so boring, so overwhelming, so unnecessary. I was beating myself up really with it, and didn't know how to turn this all around to be a good thing for me. And it ended up that every time I went home and someone asked me, "What did you do in work today?" I could say only that I did nothing. And it was really a bad feeling, and I think that now that I think about it, it wasn't necessarily true, because all these meetings, all these discussions were for something, and maybe someone on the other side of the phone, behind a different screen, waited for my opinion, waited for me to say go, waited for me to fill up this cell in Excel, and he or she was blocked with their work, and I helped it to do, right? This is what I said about this feeling of success that wasn't really that easy to feel. Maybe, there were these little successes which I failed to see, and it's also this nothing feeling is also something that I hear a lot from other people who are promoted to managers like me from being a developer. It's like this feeling, I accomplished nothing, because we still tend to run to code. Because every time I had this little time for myself to just jump into the code and just change this line or something, commit, and it was still fun, and I felt really great, really good, like I'm home. And I found a blog post once titled "How to Fail as an Engineering Manager in 8 Easy Steps." I won't focus on all of them, actually only on one of them. Number 1, keep coding. And I'm not actually saying that you, being a manager, cannot code at all. Maybe some roles, like, team leader at some companies, allow you to code. That's fine. The problem is when you're actually escaping your responsibilities as a manager, diving into code because it's your safe zone or whatever, right? That's a problem, and that was something that did it for me. And when I talked to my friends who became managers, being developers earlier, there is some kind of a pattern. Like, I'm meeting a person after a while, I'm saying, "Hey, what's going on?" And he said, "Yeah, I'm a team leader now." And I'm like, "Whoa, nice." And he's like, No, I still code. So this doesn't feel really right. So if they still like to code, why did they do that? Why did they become managers? And I think one reason may be because, as I already explained, not a lot of companies have ideas what to do after seniority. After you reach this senior developer, principal, whatever, superhero level at programming, what else? What next? From my experience, from what I heard, a lot of situations end up with, we can promote you to a manager. So maybe this is it. Maybe the motivation is different. Maybe the motivation is money. But if we talk about money, I'm pretty sure that in how the industry looks like now, being a good expert, being exceptional at in some field, may give you really a lot of money, and I don't think that's the why people do that, why people become managers. But maybe sometimes they do. And also, there's a lot of motivational gibberish going on in media and in the internet. So people say, never give up, always do what you planned to do. It may be hard, it will be better. I'm not saying that's bad. Many people probably achieved good things and good things for themselves using this ideology. But this also creates this feeling that, I cannot really back out. Backing out is not perceived as something good. It's perceived as a failure. And people are afraid of that. I was afraid of that. And having to admit that I have to take a step back was actually in my mind, it was hurting. And it is also very hard to admit them, not only to yourself, but imagine you already told your parents, your grandmother, your friends, and everybody all around that you became a manager. And next year you're meeting them, and you're like, "Hey, I'm not really. What's up?" And then it's like, "Yeah, I'm not a manager anymore." And then, "Oh, yeah, maybe one day," you know. It's I feel that this is difficult. This is difficult to reach this decision to back out. And all right, but back to my story. I didn't want this to be that bad. I was really trying hard to make ends meet. And I asked for help. I really came to my boss numerous times and asked for help. Always got it really. And they were supporting me. A lot of my friends, every other manager was supporting me and helping. But it was, unfortunately, most times it was giving me a fish, not teaching me how to fish. And that was a problem. But that was how the company was back then. Still, I had help. It was not enough, unfortunately. And so being a technical person, being a person that believes in hard skills, believes in gaining skills some way, I decided to go to some studies, right? Let's study project management. And probably this will be a surprise for you, but I really, really wasted a lot of time. It turned out that I didn't actually choose the best university, probably, but also what I learned was to find a critical path, or how to plan project's budget, and a lot of other skills that I don't need. So this wasn't really the best fit for me. Also wasted some time. And actually, fortunately, it was with company's approval. So they sent me there. I chose the university. They approved it, so they paid for it. But I was there with my friend who paid for the studies himself. And every time we were on a boring lecture, I was telling him, "Man, if I only had to buy this, and pay for it." Okay. But literally, it only gave me a diploma, nothing more. And not the best choice. And it ended up really, still, it was a struggle for me. Every time, every day. Even though I tried as hard as I could. And the thing that was, I think, the worst was that I wasn't proud of the effects of my work. I didn't appreciate it. And it was far, far, far below my acceptance criteria for myself. And was beating up me really bad, because when I realized that I wouldn't actually want to be a developer under a manager like myself, it was really, really bad and damaging. So, this is I don't wish you this feeling during your job. It was really, really a bad one. And this is the time for a man in a hat. The man in a hat. But being serious, this is the time I would like to share the sad part of the story, because I didn't really realize how much the stuff that was happening in my job, in my work, affected my private life, and it affected my private life seriously, because it affected my mental health, and it also affected my well-being. And so I was working overtime because I was always behind schedule. It was like 10, 12 hours a day every time, and I was not effective. I was always stressed. And it came to this point where I actually forgot to eat. So I was way past the lunchtime, and I suddenly realized it's 5 p.m. already. Everyone's gone. I'm pretty much the only one in the office, apart of people who start their job at 12. And I'm like without lunch, and most of lunch places are already closed. So I end up eating fast food and gaining a lot of weight. And I wasn't really feeling good physically after all this. And after I I'm coming from work. The only thing actually I can do is just eat dinner and go to sleep. So it was actually a loop of 12 hours of sleep and 12 hours of work, which is absolutely not healthy. And I wasn't able to rest, which was really, really devastating because every weekend was hard. Like Saturday was okay, but Sunday I actually spent every Sunday thinking about how bad it will be on Monday. I don't wish you that feeling. And I wasn't able to rest even during vacation because every once in a while I was thinking about how I don't like my job. And it wasn't always only me who saw that in me, right? People were always also seeing that. How do I know that? Well, at some point, my company had some party. I think it was a Christmas party. And they thought that it would be funny to organize some kind of an Oscar-like ceremony and provide prizes for people for, like, thought-up categories, right? So I got a prize in an office zombie category because I was, this is how I looked like when I was in work. One guy even joked that I was only missing an IV with me because I was so, tired and stressed all the time and depressed. But also, there was a moment, all of the whole story, me being a manager was lasted over a year. After around a year, my then fiancée, now wife, said to me one sentence, which was, "Do something about it. You have to do something about it because it will kill you." It was something that wasn't really the reason that I decided to go back to being a developer, but it was another factor and a very important one. And I saw how it destroyed me really inside. So I decided, I made a decision. I made a decision that it was it for me, and I needed a way out of this. And this is the only way I can actually function. And I want to stop kidding myself that it will work, because I proved to myself that it won't, and it doesn't. And fortunately, events went pretty smoothly for me, because it turned out that I have a colleague in another team which was working on the same project as me, and he said he was a team lead then. And when I was talking to him, he said that he would like to try project management, actually, and he's interested in this role. So I said, hey, how about we do a role swap? Like, I will be a team lead, or I'll be developer still, again, and you'll become a project manager. And he said, well, why not? So we went to our boss, he approved this, and we decided to do a switch over of a project manager. We did a month of a handover where we were like a Hydra project manager. Like I was the stepping down, he was stepping up. But we did this handover over a month, and eventually he became project manager, and I stepped down. But the decision was made, and even if something, even it wasn't so successful for me, like the fortunate guy that decided to be a project manager, I would just quit. I would just quit job. If I wasn't able to step down inside my company, I would just change companies. It was that for me. It was just over. I was so determined to fix my life, not even my job, but also my life, that I needed to do this. I needed to step down. And finally, I felt I am a master of my own fate. I have the fate in my hands, and it felt good. And it really was a relief. It really was a relief when I went back to coding. All problems literally went away. And I was again a technical guy. And I was really bringing a lot of value to the company because being a technical guy, and in my comfort zone, I was able to do some other stuff. I started doing recruitment. I started doing other initiatives. I was really doing a lot of good stuff for me and for the company. So it was really a win-win situation. And I was back to appreciating my work again, which was very important to me. I knew I liked what I was doing, and I liked the quality of the work and I'm delivering. So yeah, it was really good in the end. And there is also an upside to this story. It's not only bad, of course, because I got a lot of takeaways out of this. And the takeaways would be that I learned to organize my work. I learned to make to-do lists. I learned to be organized. When you have a lot of stuff to do, when you think about how to eat an elephant, you have an answer just one bite at a time, right? You just split it into to-dos, into simple tasks and do them. I learned to prioritize, and I learned to plan the day. So I always started the day with listing all the things I had to do, reading all the emails, important ones, not important ones, trash, and stuff. And I learned to prioritize and how to operate. And I also learned to seek the trustworthy people. I didn't only realize to seek them, but know how to find them. And I realized that working with such people is really good for me, good for our company, good for project. And I also learned a lot on how to be diplomatic. As I said, I was a point of contact for the customer, for the client of the company. So many times I got a lot of questions that were difficult. And if I were, still were a technical guy and was answering the questions how a technical guy would, I would just say the truth, right? And it doesn't really have to be the best way to answer a question. If you have a question like, for example, why are you using different versions of this library on different pages of the application? Well, and you learn to answer these questions in a political correct way, and you learn to be a diplomat, really. And it really is a useful skill, not only in your work, but also in life. So it was a really good takeaway for me. There's also, I think, a funny story, a Skype story. So I was a manager using Linux, which is, I think, it's pretty rare. I'm confident it is. And the company used Skype as an internal direct messaging tool. And at some point, a guy comes to me and he says, "Hey, we're talking to you for over like a couple of days, and you're not answering. What's up?" And I'm like, "Hey, I don't see anything. Look at my screen." He says, "Yeah." He doesn't see the conversation. It turned out that with some update of the Skype Linux lib, library client, they had a bug with group conversations. And there were a lot of group conversations going on in our company. There was a way how to deal with stuff. And a lot of these group conversations, like I just didn't get any messages. So if a person created a group conversation and I was in it, I didn't see anything. And it turned out that maybe 5% of these conversations went back to me eventually, and the other 95%, like everything went okay, everything was fine without me being involved. And I actually thought, yeah, that's okay. That's okay. If something is important, people will come, right? And I think it's a funny story, of course. With the next update, they fixed it. So, all right. And also, having thought about this, it was a really deep dive for me. It was really a broad role that I got after being just a simple developer without any responsibility, really. And by deciding to be a manager, I dived deeply. But I think that if I didn't do it, I wouldn't have learned so much stuff valuable for me, and I would still think that this is something for me, and that I would like to be a manager soon. And now I know that I'm not saying never, but I'm saying not now, and I know that a lot of skills I need to gain, a lot of skills I need to improve to be a good manager. I know how difficult this job is, and this is another thing that I took away from the experience. I have a lot of appreciation for good managers because I know now how difficult a job this is. And I know that it requires a lot of working with yourself, a lot of skills, a lot of thought into it. It's not that easy as it may look like. So I salute to every good manager. I know how hard it is to work as a manager. It requires a different set of skills as a technical role. And you have to have them. Not everyone has them. That's obvious. So, wrapping things up. If you ask me what should I do now, I would say just try it out, like choose your own way and try it yourself. Because this is the best way to gain experience. Just do things yourself, having in mind all the things you've heard. And the best lessons are from our own experience, right? And one thing is important, though, in all of this. Just remember to be able to and have this courage to quit when this becomes ugly, and have this opportunity, to look from the distance at your current position and at your life and at your job, and see that something's wrong, and maybe this is not the best place for me, and I need to escape. And it may be perceived as a failure, it may be perceived as something not good for you, but taking a step back is not wrong if it's good for you, right? So, if there's one thing that I would like to leave you with, it will be probably a thought that I had about the whole story. It is that you really need to appreciate your job. It does affect your private life. It's very important to us. It plays a very crucial part of our life, our jobs. So one thought that I would like you to leave this room with is do what makes you happy. Thank you. Are there any questions? Do you have a microphone or?
Yeah, should I give you a microphone? Maybe.
Yeah, I can give
you. How long have you been project manager?
And it's over a year and maybe 3 months, something like that.
Thanks.
Thank you. Any other questions? Can you give it a, yeah, thanks.
Thank you for sharing this personal story. And it was about you, of course, but I have a question. You didn't elaborate much on that, but you mentioned that you asked for help, which I think is great. Like you talked to your managers, they financed your education, and you mentioned that they gave you fish, not the fishing stick or whatever.
Yeah.
And you also mentioned that you got some nasty feedback, like you've been laughed at by your colleagues, right? They ridiculed your way of being at the time. So I wonder, how would you say, is there like a systematic problem? Because I would expect that maybe you would receive some honest feedback, not a ridicule, either from your peers or from your boss or from somebody, I don't know. Like, I guess your girlfriend was the only source of some really valuable feedback. And another thing is they financed a useless piece of education, but there was no one to mentor you in any way. Is that right?
Well, a couple of things here, really, because they trusted me with the choice of the university. So they trusted me that it was a good choice if I made it. So I think it was okay. It was, as I said, it was a small company, and they didn't have really like programs for for managers and mentoring and stuff. Everything was pretty, let's say, rough, but. It was like every time I asked for help, I actually, people told me, you can do it this way. I do it this way. I can share a spreadsheet with you, which helped me. I can show you an email which I sent, which was okay. It was all, it was all helping, I think, and also, what else? I pretty much think that. yeah, another thing is, it wasn't that the project was like bad. It was okay in the project. Like the project wasn't falling apart as a whole, right? It was completely, I think, all right. A little bit, you know. Of course, we were not meeting the timelines. I mean, come on, who does? But it was not something that wasn't expected. Like sometimes it was the customer's fault, sometimes it wasn't our fault, but it was usual business. It wasn't like something was on fire and I needed help immediately because we were dying there.
Well, you were on fire.
Well, I were on fire, but it was, you know, maybe some kind of mentoring I lacked, of course, and also. Please treat this story as a lot of. I made a lot of simplifications there, right? Just to make my points. But I am a person. I am a person who laughs a lot at everything, and I like rough jokes. So it was, you know, I like to be laughed at as well. It wasn't like that was, you know, they were like beating me to death with these kind of jokes. I laughed at them. But it was not until I realized what this meant, it took a little while, right? What this meant for me, summing up the story, right? So yeah, it was not a good place to be, but like I had a friend who was sitting next to me and it was also my manager, and he's seen how I looked like, and that was bothering me. And every now and then he asked me, "What's up? What's the problem?" And you know, we went through it, and he said, "Okay, this is normal. You're not that bad. You know, you're not in that bad place as you think. You think you will not be able to deliver. You will because you know this and that. So I got a lot of help, but it's still a lot of it was in my mind.
Thanks.
Thank you. Any other questions? Another one. Thank you. There you go.
So, if you were to become a manager once again, how would you prepare to make it better?
I think I would attend a lot of courses. It wouldn't be in a university course, but I think workshops of some kind. I would find some managers that I like their work, right? I see that I appreciate their work. Ask how they do stuff, how they do things, and read a lot of books, as many as I know, as I could, that are good, that I know that people say they're good. You know, this like see what the job description of this management role is. You know, ask around and be better prepared for this. And I would love to do this by trial. I mean, I would love to try this. Let's say I would become a team lead of my team for 2 weeks and see what happens. If I have this opportunity in my company, I would be really, really grateful for it, because I could be like a shadow team lead, right? I have already a team lead. I would be for 2 weeks, I am actually the team lead, but have this guy behind me and he's helping me, something like that. I would really try this and see if I'm fit for this role this time.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Questions? Not anymore, I think.
If there's no questions, that was Tomasz Borowiec. Thank you, Tomasz, very much.
Thank you. I would appreciate